Thank you.
Morning, Airport.
Morning.
Good morning, Taylor. We're delighted that you guys took some time out of your Saturday to come visit us and have some, what I hope is going to be a very fun session today, a little bit different. We're going to start out with a little safety brief from the Air Force. I don't know if you've flown between here and Pueblo for that hamburger, but if you don't have TCAS in your airplane and you don't do flight following, I think maybe we'd better get a little mental check on you. It's unbelievable. I've looked at a little bit of the presentation, and I think you guys have some squiggles of flight paths that I saw. And I'm thinking, wow, I go right through the middle of those. So in any case, today, before we get started, I want to thank the Ramada Hotel. I don't know if you guys know, but they pretty well donate this facility for us to use. And so we are wanting to thank them. And if you smell breakfast as you were coming in, stop by there sometime if you're on the field and have that. Or after work, not within 8 hours of flying, but have a drink in the bar. If you have a cell phone, let's put it off or on stun. The restrooms are right out this door to the left and another left down this hall. And then it does cost us a little bit to put these on, and so if you can spare a couple of bucks, we really appreciate it. I'll keep the good donuts coming and the good coffee and all of that. We really appreciate it. So today we're going to get going with the Academy briefing, which will include a little bit from DOS Aviation down in Pueblo. At 9:45, we're going to have our DPE Round Table. Starting that out with some introductions, and then I'll ask some very pointed questions of the panel. We'll have a little break, and then we're going to open it up to you guys to ask your pointed questions. So, without any further ado, I want to present Major Chris Rittenhauer and Captain Louis Frost, who will give us some info on the Air Force Academy.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We've made some drastic changes at the Academy, where we fly and how we're doing it. And this was driven by what happened in with Denver and the Centennial with GPS approaches, Colorado Springs. ATC requested that we do some things, we made some changes, and we revamped how we fly at the for the powered flight program. So we're going to talk to you about that. We're also going to cover some mid-air collision avoidance, which Louis is going to talk about. We're going to cover the glider and where the cross-country gliders fly, and then we'll finish up with DOS. So here we go. Let's get started. Louis, you'd like to go with our map?
Yeah, we do this. We can try to get out here at least once a year, go out to all the surrounding FBOs and also our general aviators, just to let everybody know where we're at. But just talking about the profile of a mid-air collision, typically it happens during the day, VFR, as you can see, normal business hours, and most of the time on a weekend, because that's when you, the general aviation community, is flying. We still do fly on the weekends sometimes as well. And then most of them are close to the airport. As you can see, 80% we're below 3,000 AGL, 31% we're actually below 500 AGL. So it can happen anywhere, but most of the time, you know, it's in when we're near close to the airfield where there's going to be more traffic, obviously. And typically where we're at, it kind of happens in our training areas because, you know, you're focusing sometimes more on your maneuvers and teaching that student versus looking outside and making sure, you know, thinking maybe big sky theory when you probably should be clearing just a little bit more. Next slide. So who is it? Flight time, that's irrelevant. When we've looked at the numbers, flight instructors aren't immune. Actually, only 10% of pilots are instructors, but actually instructors are involved in over 30% of our near mid-air collisions or our mid-air collisions. Next slide. I don't have any notes on this slide. I can just go off. It's going to be a lot better with pictures. I think everybody.
You have your tapping too.
Pilots love pictures.
We do. I mean, I don't know about you guys as pilots, but we like pictures between. We don't really do a lot of teaching without that.
How about some war stories?
War stories. Currently, I don't play. I fly and I train just like you guys, the cadets who have never flown before. So, and that's I think why the instructors are involved as much, because we're looking inside. We're trying to deal with our student who's trying to kill us and do stupid stuff. So we got to watch them. So,
I got
sir,
one.
yes.
Yeah, have you guys had any mid-air incidents with UAVs down there?
No, we have not. Actually, the UAVs haven't been operating at the academy since just after the fall one. So about November, I think October, November was the last time they've operated. They take the winter months off just based on how they fly, and they're going to be starting up here again pretty soon. But we have a pretty good deconfliction with them, where they only operate near their little strip that's not usable by anyone else. It's pretty short. So they stay out far away. We avoid them with our routes. And Mr. Dan runs in the back, and he's not going to talk today, but he does a great job of working our airspace issues and making sure that we're all deconflicted from each other and from the general aviation as much as we can. I know when we get to my briefing here, when it comes out, I'm not going to be probably the most popular person, because we've taken up a lot of airspace, and we understand that, and it's just what we need. It's what we need to do to our mission. And our goal is to provide avenues for general aviation to still fly where they want to go. And we've tried to think about that in a very educated way and look at where you've flown. And we understand that we're going to have overlapping areas, and that's just part of VFR flying. We get that. We encourage people not to just haphazardly file hatters and try and get people in trouble, because that's not what we want to do. We want to find out where the conflicts are and how we can fix them. So when we have issues like that, we do try and connect to Centennial and say, hey, you know, I know it's near one of the training areas. Can we figure out if we can find out who it was and maybe get their side of the story, find out what happened before we just file paperwork? Because we don't want to get people in trouble. We all love flying. We want to go fly. I fortunately do it for a living. So I feel, like I said, pretty happy to do what I do. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, Chris.
8,000 feet at like a low horsepower. But
Chris, just in response to getting back to the UAV issue, we only fly UAVs to the Aardvark Airport, the little airstrip just north of the Air Force Academy. So they're 40-pound devices. There's generally maybe 2 of them maximum in the air, and they only go to 500 feet over the top of that airport. So they're well away from the interstate, and they're no higher than 500 feet. We do go to 10,500 west. So I just want to clear that all up. Our UAS operations at the Academy really don't interfere at all with general aviation, because they're just north of the alert area, and there's really no reason anybody's ever flying there. So,
But there's been a long-standing NOTAM about the area, and that covers considerably higher than 500 feet.
it goes to 10,500, but that starts well west of the interstate, and that's designed that way. So it's probably about a mile west of the interstate before it goes to 10.5. That NOTAM will exist forever because of the way the FAA requires UAS to keep operating. Even if it's in flip procedures, the FAA mandates that UAS operations outside of restricted areas have a constant NOTAM. That's why you'll constantly see it. So it really doesn't present a factor for you guys unless you happen to be flying, making circles just north of our alert area, which most people don't fly there because there's too much else going on. Chris, I wanted to clear that up because that's a question that I get a lot of people ask me that. And the NOTAM kind of makes it look like, because it's off the Black Forest Vortex, people have told me or asked me if we have UAS operating around Black Forest. And so it's quite a bit of ways from there.
And it's fairly well identified as to where it is. It's just it's a pretty big area and it's pretty big airspace. And I know I haven't got a ghost of a chance of seeing one of those things.
You don't. But they have visual observers for each aircraft. So both of those 2 devices are being watched by one individual to make sure that there's not a conflict. And we do run, the Air Force is required to call RC airplanes, that the Air Force Academy uses for research. We're required to call those UAS as well. And they generally operate only up to 700 feet maximum in the vicinity of the Air Force Academy itself.
Thanks a lot.
All right,
Just a little bit more information on, talk about mid-air collisions. Most involve faster aircraft overtaking a slower aircraft, maybe potential blind spot, something like that. Next slide, which I believe we'll talk about that. So in order to avoid mid-air collisions, what can we do? We can use scanning techniques to keep that blind spot moving as we're looking across the sky. Flight planning, obviously, just what we're doing here is giving you guys the information of where, we don't own that airspace, but this typically is where we're going to be on a day-to-day basis. Then if you have lights, use them if you can. Sterile cockpit is always good. That helps you get outside, stay in the game, flying there. Flight following, as we discussed earlier, and then what I just talked about, blind spots. Our new T-53 is a low-wing aircraft, so looking down for us is going to be a lot harder than looking up if we're out there operating. Next slide. This is kind of the list of what we have that operates at USACA. We'll go into more detail with each squadron, but as you can see, we do have quite a few planes doing soaring, parachuting, and flying powered flight ops. Starting off with the squadron that I started off in, I'm now at the group doing the group safety position, but with the 94th, we take cadets basically for no flight experience at all, give them their basic soaring experience after their freshman year, usually in the summer between their freshman and sophomore year. Put them in the plane for 15 rides. If they get 10, that's great. If they get to solo by 15, that's what we would like. We don't have a high percentage, maybe about 20%, but we try to get them up there and doing it on their own. Then we take the cream of the crop there, and we take typically about 40 to 50 upgrades per year, and we put those into the upgrade program. We teach them how to instruct in the sailplane. From there, we take just a small percentage, usually a couple cadets from each class, to do advanced soaring, which is the aerobatics, which we use the same glider that we now train in. And then also we have the advanced soaring cross-country team, which is also called our sailplane racing team. And that's probably what you guys need to be most worried about, because we go all over the state just trying to find lift and hitting our targets, hitting our points, flying our legs, and then trying to make it back home and not having to land out in somebody's field. But as you can see, those are kind of the statistics up there on the right side. We fly over 17,000 sorties a year. In the summertime, we can fly upwards of 140 sorties a day. We have a lot of soaring students out there, so you might have a good instructor in the back or a cadet in the back, but your guy in front may have never been in an airplane before. So I'm sure you guys can all see me there with that one. But as far as the instruction, 95% is done by our cadets. The rated officers are just there to supervise, provide check rides, make sure that our instructor cadre are doing things the right way. These are our aircraft. The TG-16 is our primary trainer. It is also our acrobatic bird. We typically do that on our airfield, in our acro boxes. Our TG-15 Alpha is the two-seater cross-country bird, and the TG-15 Bravo is our single-seater. So basically, you got the duodiscus and the 2B. Now, I'm actually qualified in all these, but I have not taken the cross-country upgrade, so I can't talk to exact specifics on everything that they're doing in the cross-country program. However, that usually occurs between April and September when the weather starts getting better. We start getting the convectivity that hits the mountains and stuff, and so we can start finding more lift in those time frames. This is what I wanted to point out, though, is where we actually go fly. So we usually take a tow up to 2,000 foot AGL, we release, and then our cadets and our instructors, we go try to find lift. And we start out obviously there usually around the USACA reservation. Typically we'll show a slide here real quick here in a little bit about the local area, and we'll just start looking for lift, whether it's winds coming off the mountains or the actual convectivity. We start finding some cloud streets, and then they'll decide they might have something try to pre-plan something out to the west or out to the east, but depending on the conditions we could go anywhere. So as you saw, that was going out to the west. We make it out to Mount Evans. We go out to Gunnison. Then if we're going out east, we'll go out to Lyman. We'll go out to Goodland, Kansas. We made it way out last year. We only made it back to Burlington. We had some weather issues back home, so we decided to land a little short. But hey, it was a good flight. They set a lot of records. This is a big one. Going to the north, you can see we've actually landed up at I guess Front Range is what it's called now, Old Jeffco. We've made it all the way up there, and we fly up and down the Front Range because typically that's where we find most of our lift. Next slide. If you're coming down to Colorado Springs, this is where we're operating. And we typically, what I should say, we find lift and we find it up to about 17.5. You know, we're not going to go into Class A airspace, but we find it all the way up there. We try to get up that high, and then they set out on their points and they fly legs. So if we're doing a local, we usually go up to Larkspur, maybe out to Lyman, and come back to Colorado Springs, fly a triangle, try to get that mileage there. So as you can see, we also go down to Canyon City, also back behind Pikes Peak quite a bit. But a lot of lines there. That's just each line is a separate flight that our sailplane racing team did. So we're always operating every day out there. Next slide.
All right, so now something close
we
to my
mentioned the fact about the transponders.
Oh yes, sorry, that's the last thing. Yeah, I want to talk about. We do have a transponder on board. We'll be squawking 1202. However, the thing is only good for about 4 hours of battery life. So we can fly upwards of 6-7 hours on a, without an engine. So the pilots have to decide where they really want to use that transponder. So you'll have some that want to use it when they're out, not talking to anybody, or typically maybe have it on when you're, no kidding, close to the airfield, a lot more traffic. But just know that potentially they may or may not be squawking, so you may or may not pick them up on your TCAS systems. Thanks, Dan.
So, as I was saying, something a little closer to my heart is something with an engine. The gliders do some very cool things. I personally like having an engine where I can get myself out of problems if I can't find a lift. Maybe I just don't trust that I'll find a lift. I am not part of the 98, however, we'll briefly touch on the 98. They have the Twin Otters, and they do the basic free fall in the summer. They do advanced parachute, jump master training, and Wings of Blue. So the Wings of Blue, the Wings of Green. The Wings of Green are the juniors who are upgrading to be the performers, and then the Wings of Blue. They have two teams. They have the aerobatic team that does the crazy stuff up in the air, and then they have the team that does the demonstrations jumping into the football stadiums. You may have seen them at the national championship team jumping in this year. Or if you come up to the academy for some football games, you'll see them almost every game. You can see it's one of the premier programs in the world. We've had delegations come from international, from Germany, from Russia, that comes and looks at the academy and goes, how do you do that? That is incredible. You take cadets who've never jumped before, take them from their first couple jumps all the way through, by their senior year, junior and senior year, they're instructing other cadets who've never jumped on how to jump. It's an amazing program what they do, and they're very professional. They win awards. This year they won the national championship again, and then they also went up against the pros, the adults who do this for a living, and they kind of cleaned up and just did very well. So it's an amazing program. It builds a lot of self-esteem, a lot of confidence in the cadets. I know when I was a cadet, I wanted to jump, but I didn't really want to jump. So the first one was pretty scary, the second one was scary, the third one I really liked, the fourth one I really liked, and the fifth one I said, just get me on the ground, please. But it's a great program, and that's what they're operating out of. A nice brand new Twin Otter. It's only been around since, what, the 40s, 50s? So.
And they do operate, they actually fly out of Colorado Springs, that's where they're hangared, and then they come over to the academy, pick up their jumpers, and operate on there all day and then go back.
And another point too is they hold at 10,000 feet, about 5 miles north of the academy and south of the academy, to the west of the interstate, and they can be holding there for extended periods of time, waiting for arrival to the academy due to the east pattern being full. So if you're trucking on down the interstate, you can expect to have that otter there probably all day long. So they just go up and down all day, just making jump runs.
About north of Baptist Road and probably west of Highway 83, somewhere in that range is where they'll be. So this would be my squadron. This is the 557. We do the power flight program. We also have the flying team, which has won a record 26 Region 2 championships, go to nationals, and hopefully they do really well at nationals this year. They operate the Cessnas we have, and then everybody else what we're doing is we're teaching the cadets introduction to powered flight, so probably near and dear, similar to what you all do when you're not giving evaluations. And we use the new Cirrus SR20, the 420 program, and all that. We can fly not quite as many as the gliders, but we do fly in the summer upwards of 70 sorties a day. It's generally not that much, but we do fly a lot. And they're about an hour and a half long sorties. In the school year, we're driven by the cadet schedule. So we fly when the cadets are available to fly. And we'll fly about 40 to 50 sorties a day. Daylight hours, we're daylight VFR only, so we don't fly at night, we don't fly when the weather's bad. Most of us were rated pilots at one point, and they took it away from us, so we'll get it back at some point. Here's our, as we said, current primary trainer. And good to note, traffic advisory system on the Cirrus. We have a task so we can see you if you're, as long as your mode C is on. The Cessnas do not, however. What the Cessnas do as far as traffic avoidance is, with the high wing, they do a rock and roll, so they can see where they're going. Before they make a turn, they'll put their wing up and then turn. So hopefully that helps out. Here's our local flying. Here's the meat of what we're talking about. Here's why we're here. I know that you have multiple areas up here, and you can see that, I think is it Elizabeth and Gallup? Something like that? Iowa? Yeah, I don't use good words. I'm from Philadelphia. I don't know the whole Indian language. Native American, thank you, that's the correct term. But the important part is that here's one of our areas, and it overlaps one of yours. And we are aware of that. This is also where we're flying, all over in here. And you're going to have 40 or 50 aircraft a day, up to 70 in the summertime, operating all in here. This orange is a nav route, so we'll be flying that at about 1,000 feet AGL. These other areas will be between 85 and 95 for most of the areas, and a couple of them we will be anywhere from 10.5 to 11.5 in these back three, but primarily 85 to 95. All along here, 9,000. So this is where we're operating, and this is where we understand that we've taken up a chunk of airspace. What we want to do and what we're doing by coming out here is to make sure that you know where we're at. Yeah, sir.
Well, when we've had briefings from you in the past, we've always asked the question, what frequencies are you on? And it's always been top secret. So if you're going into our areas, are you monitoring your air frequency?
We are.
Do you see us, or do we have to see you?
Well, we should hopefully see each other.
Right.
We're requiring our pilots in Area 2 to monitor your frequency. Right now, we're in discussion.
Going in?
We do announce going, not on your frequency. We just monitor your frequency. We use that as we're paying attention and we're listening to your frequency, because we would assume that you would announce that you're going into your area. I am working with leadership because I don't think it should be top secret. And I want to make sure, I can't make that decision, but I want to make sure that everyone is okay. And then I want to, and when I get it approved, I will let Taylor know, we can put out a memo, or we can do what we need to do to get it out, what frequency we are on. When that happens, because I think it's a when, I don't think it's an if. When that happens, what I need is you guys to understand and to teach people that it's a monitor. Because what we can't do is we can't have a ton of general aviation using that frequency, talking on that frequency. It's kind of like when I'm a heavy pilot, so going across the ocean, you tune up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just listen to the aircraft guys going across, and you can hear some funny stories. And it's like they don't think anyone, they think they're on a private jet or something, and there's some interesting things going on. Well, what I need you to understand is on that frequency there's a lot of traffic, and we're talking to each other about all these points. We're deconflicting coming in and out of our areas. So what we can't have extra extraneous comms on there. We can't have people saying, hey, I don't know your call signs, but I'm so-and-so, and I'm just flying around, and I'm near Area 2, and I'm going to be operating, and da-da-da-da-da. We just want you to monitor when we get that up. And we will call when we're going to areas. The other thing I need you to understand is we're not telling you where all our points are, because do you really want to know? Do you really want to learn our 20-some points in all our areas and our nav? I don't think you do. The big things are, that's Area 2. And when we release the frequency, we'll tell you the things to listen for. Area 2, north nav route. Those are the two things that are going to be the largest conflict to you where you operate for your training guys. Getting down to Pueblo, yeah, there's going to be other things. Getting in and out of some airports, maybe down to the Springs. You can see that there is, what does it stand about? It's a 10 radial, it's about 4 miles separation, 2 to 4 miles.
Yes.
It's about 2 to 4 miles in between each of our areas, so that there are corridors to get through our airspace without being conflicts.
Explain the inflow and outflow.
Yeah. I give about an hour and 15-minute presentation when I do this for our pilots to teach them how to do it. For you, I'm not going to do that, yes. The blues are going into our areas, so we leave this green line going into our areas. The reds are when we're leaving our areas coming out. So we have inflow and outflow routes. This was designed by a tanker pilot, and so we have circular paths going in and out of the areas. So you go in and out and in and out, so that we're not two ways, beak to beak, possibly co-altitude on any of these paths. We have intelligent ways to get in and out. And so that's something to understand. There's the charts that are up on the table, and you're more than welcome to take one. But understand that on the blue lines we're going in, on the red lines we're coming out. And those are some important things. What other questions can I answer? Can I help you out?
Green line, explain the green. Explain the green.
See, I told you Dan wasn't going to brief it. The green line is it's basically our master way to get in and out of our areas. That's where all our traffic is going to be. It's our corridor. We fly that, and we're supposed to favor the right-hand side based on our direction of that. And we're going to be at one of 2 altitudes. We're going to be either 9,000 feet or 9,500 feet. 9,500 feet is going clockwise, so north to south. 9,000 feet is counterclockwise, south to north. So those are the 2 altitudes that we're at. There's also going to be some of the DOS Aviation folks who are transiting, but it's more towards the south. But they're going to be at about 8,500 feet going up to get to Meadowlink to do some practice approaches and whatnot. So we're basically taking 85, 9, and 95. We don't necessarily fly kind of spherical, as most VFR traffic does. We do more of a combination IFR, VFR flying, and that's just based on ease for students, what Colorado Springs wants. Some of these altitudes are driven by Colorado Springs because they want us over the airfield at certain altitudes. And so, what other questions?
You still provide Tigers?
Tigers are out of Pueblo. And those are the ones that will be DOS Aviation. That'll be 8,500.
And what are yours?
We are Shrink and Talon. And then you'll also have the Rally, which is the Aero Club at the Academy. And you'll have the Bolts, which are the flying team, the Cessnas.
I have 2 things. Don't you also have crews coming up from the Springs to Centennial, going along I-25 for pattern work up here?
We will have aircraft going up to Centennial. They won't go from the Springs. They'll be coming from the Academy. And there's a couple ways they can get there. Preferably, they're going to follow our routing all the way up to here and then just go VFR into Centennial. And they'll be monitoring Denver approach frequency. They can, because we're VFR, once they get into here, if they choose, they can go VFR up here. And the Aero Club's going to be doing that. They're going to be following I-25. I ask people to follow the blue lines, to follow our lines, because then we're predictable and everyone knows where we're at. And that's what we've told you. If they choose to do something else, they are pilots and they're VFR. So I can't tell them they can't do it. Well, I guess I can, but we're not telling them they can't do it because we don't want to tie their hands, because we all wear wings for a reason.
Okay.
But those are the reasons.
Second question is, does the supervisor flying decide what areas they're going to, or does the air crew decide? I'm talking particularly about Area 2, if there's a possibility of minimizing that, just except for when you need it kind of thing.
In the fall, in the school year, like I said, we're driven by the cadet schedules. And we launched 15 aircraft ago. And that's so we can get our cadets done, we can get them all their training, because our primary mission is to train the cadets to show them why we all love flying. Because a lot of these kids, they don't know if they want to fly, they don't know if they like it or not, and it's our goal and our job to get them in the air and say, how much better is this than sitting behind a desk? As you all know, we have one of the best jobs in the world. And so we're trying to give them that love and that joy of flying. And so we're driven by their schedules, and as long as we have the pilots available, we're flying 15 lines a go. You can see that we have 10 areas, and 3 high ones that aren't great for our aircraft, especially when it starts getting warm. So we have about 10 aircraft and 15 aircraft in 10 places to go. So we will need those areas when we fly there. We do our best to schedule where we double book areas and people will go to the springs first and then go to an area when someone's leaving the area. So we do try and schedule that. I will tell you that we use the fronts more than the backs. So 2's a back, but 2's also one of the closer ones. So because of our engine, the speeds we fly, and our limit to 1.5 hours sorting, we can't go longer because of the cadet schedule. Because of those factors, we need to stay as close as possible. We used to, as you know, operate up in here, which took us about 5 minutes to get to our areas. It now takes us 10 to 15 minutes to get to these areas. So you can see you add that up to 2 sorties, you're adding 20 minutes of sorties, so that's all training that we've lost. Now we're just cruising. Sir?
I just want to make a few comments from a pilot examiner's point of view and reiterate why we are all here. I think it may be an attitude adjustment problem. I've heard you say several times this morning, our airspace this and our airspace that, and then your airspace. And you know, as a pilot examiner, I give an extensive oral on where is Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo airspace, and what are the cloud clearances and visibility requirements, and what's incumbent upon us, and who has the right-of-way. And I saw on one of your slides that 80% of the wrecks are people overtaken and bashing into the back of aircraft who have the right-of-way over anybody behind them. So we have the same thing here. Just because we all live within 50 miles of the aircraft isn't all to be said for everything. You know, we're in a national ATC, FAA airspace thing. You guys use it and we use it. And I'm out here giving a flight test practice area. We have west practice area and east practice area. We think we have it. And they say southeast practice area, this is so-and-so, we're doing this over Kelly, blah, blah, blah. But John Q. Schmuck coming up here from Albuquerque, minding his own business in VFR condition and class echo airspace, observing the rule, has as much right to be there as you guys do, uniform or no. So I hope that you tell your people the same thing you're telling us. You know, John Q. Schmuck's out there, and it's not the Air Academy's airspace. I just want to, I'm not being controversial, but I just don't want to be lectured to about, you guys are down there in your uniforms with 100 authorities in the afternoon, big whoopee. We're up there doing our thing too, well within our right.
Absolutely, sir. And I apologize for making it sound like I think I own it. I don't. Okay. I'm used to talking about this airspace.
I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Yes, sir.
I think knowledge replaces fear, and knowledge provides power, but you guys don't have any more right to be there than we do.
We do not, sir.
Okay.
We understand that this is Class Echo and everybody is entitled to this airspace. And that's why I said in the beginning that I encourage people not to file hazards because they don't own the airspace. Just because somebody joins up on them and is in the area, it's not necessarily a hazard.
Does everybody know what a hazard is?
Oh, sorry.
We have, in the Air Force, we have what's called a hazardous air traffic report, and it can be filed for a number of different conditions. One of them is a near-mid-air collision. You know, if the tower gives you a clearance that puts you in a bad situation that you don't realize till late, those kind of things are hazardous air traffic reports. That gets filed if it's a transient air crew, wherever they end up landing, whatever Air Force base or stop they make, they file that report with the safety office there. Then that safety office gets it back to their home station or whoever actually owns, or not doesn't own, but is located near that airspace, and then they investigate and they determine whether it's going to be reportable as a safety event or safety mishap. Even though there wasn't really a mishap, it just still gets classified as such. That way we can trend, we can do trend analysis, be proactive on the safety front to say, hey, we've been seeing, we've had like 3 or 4 matters right here in this area. And I'll give you an example real quick of just our glider program. Just in our the airspace, which isn't ours, it's just an alert area. It's just there to say, hey, we're going to be operating from I-25 to the front range there over the academy. We had 4 near-mid-air collisions within, and we're calling it on ourselves here, 4 near-mid-air collisions within about a week of each other. And I was the safety officer over there, and I was like, wait, this is not just, you know, coincidence. So we filed all those reports, you know, on ourselves, and then we looked at it, and we came up with some new procedures because we're flying new gliders, and the procedures we had were for 2 generations of gliders ago. that we were doing. So that's why we have this program. I know I just went on for 5 minutes about what a hazardous air traffic report is, but it's something that we use in the safety channels of the Air Force to try to be proactive and to figure some stuff out.
And that's just a quick depiction of where we've had some of the most recent near-mid-air collisions, and that's the surface. And that's showing you where our old airspace was. That's our nav route, as I alluded to.
Were those mid-airs Air Force to Air Force or Air Force to other civilian aircraft?
We didn't distinguish between the two.
No,
It's a
they were,
combination of
I can speak to that. They were Air Force to non-Air Force, and almost every one of those incidences, no, the other party did not take evasive action, meaning they didn't see our aircraft, and it was most likely seen by us because of our task system on board.
So nav route, like I talked about, will be 1,000 feet AGL, and we'll be calling those points. And this is what we talked about. And we are here for a partnership, and we are here to talk to you so that we're all aware of where we're flying. As Pete's coming up, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, just got a question. So, as Glenn alluded to, Joe Schmuck comes flying up from Albuquerque. What's the possibility of either expanding or getting rid of alert areas? I mean, they're sort of deceiving. If I look at the sectional,
We are working that.
Let me explain that. Those alert areas were designed years ago for T3 aircraft for doing aerobatic works. I have tried to get rid of those for years, but prior to his leadership anyway, I've been told we're getting new airplanes, we don't know what that's going to mean, we want to keep them because it's a bureaucratic nightmare to create them. So the plan is to attempt to create alert areas to reflect what DOS is doing and what we're currently doing. And I'm going to work with AOPA on that. I discussed a different option years ago and actually went with AOPA out to Washington, D.C. to create something else that would be beneficial even to you guys. That's something we can talk about later, but it would be nice to be able to establish our training areas and your training areas on the back of the terminal area chart. I actually created it, or I asked the FAA to create a terminal area chart for the Colorado Springs because of this mess, with that expectation, and they told us no. They told us we need to have alert areas. But I would love to see your training areas on the back of the Denver terminal area chart, as well as ours and anybody else's out there, and let people pick and choose, what they need to do. The final answer to all this is, I'm an air traffic control background, and I just think it's plain stupid to go fly down there with not talking to Springs or Denver, because it is a mess. It really is. I see it. I watch on the radar scope. I get a lot more involved in the kinds of things that we're talking about right here. And for you to go flying down there without getting traffic advisories, in my mind, is almost insane. It really is, because of the sheer number of airplanes, but primarily before anything else, because the type of airplanes we're flying. All these new airplanes are white with silhouettes that are very hard to see. I call them daylight stealth, especially what you see down in DOS. And as a controller, I issued traffic to two Air Force T3s. Some of you guys probably have heard this before, with 4 pilots in there. And I issued accurate traffic advisories using my deep bright scope on the tower to those 2 aircraft with 4 pilots. And after 3 traffic advisories, they did not see an airplane they were overtaking. It was a DA-20 at the time. Did not see that airplane until they were half a mile from them. So the likelihood of you seeing one of our airplanes is slim to none. It really is. So you really need to be on Springs and Denver frequency if you're going to be transitioning through this mess.
thank you.
We've already hit our time, so let me turn it over to Pete real quick to talk DOS.
Basically, what we do down in Pueblo is we take care of all the flight training for the Air Force. So anybody who's going to fly for the Air Force, if they're pilots, CISOs, which is combat system operator, and somebody will be in an aircraft but not actually operating the controls. And we also do RPA training, remotely piloted aircraft. And that is our most extensive program. And they're drone operators. And what we're doing is we're teaching them how to fly and how to operate in the national airspace system. Because once they leave DOS, they're not going to fly in an aircraft anymore. They'll be going down to do simulated training, and then they'll actually go from DOS, they go to San Antonio, Texas. From San Antonio, they go to Creech Air Force Station out in Nevada, and that's where they actually start operating the drones. But the only place that they'll learn how to fly is down in Pueblo. Okay? We bring through about 2,000 students a year. Just so you know, as I was taking notes on what Chris was mentioning, just to give you the numbers that we're doing, last 2 years we've done about 26,000 sorties. out of there, sunrise to sunset, and 5 days a week. Periodically, if we get behind the power, the timeline, we will fly Saturdays, but that's a very rare occurrence. Typically, when we're full up, 140 to 160 sorties a day is what we're looking at. But we are squawking the entire time we're flying, and we do have tasks so we can see you as well. I want to emphasize, if you don't use it, if you're coming down towards Pueblo, 120.1 is a lifesaver. We're talking to Denver, and Denver knows where our areas are, and they can give you traffic reports as well. 120.1 is a fantastic frequency. On the handout that I gave you, if you go ahead. This is our, basically what I wanted to point out is we have an airfield up here, Bullseye, which is basically where the two southernmost areas on that academy chart are. And that is one of our primary auxiliary fields. We do about a third of our sorties up there every day. The students will take off from Pueblo, fly to Bullseye, and then come down to these north areas. Now, this depiction is just what we have loaded up in our GPS. It's for our flight plans. We don't own any airspace. We realize that. We just want people to know that at any given point, within 30 miles of Pueblo, there could be about 40 little white airplanes that are very difficult to see. Okay, so we're just letting you know there's a lot of planes there at any given time. Our frequency, again, on the chart I gave you, the 123.3, that is the frequency for our interplane, and you're welcome to monitor that. It might not make a whole lot of sense for you, but what it will do is let you hear how many people are on that frequency, let you know how many folks are flying in the area. And it's also 123.3 is our supervisor flying frequency. So if you have a question for him, you can give him a call on that frequency. Okay? His call sign is Furball. So Furball is the soft supervisor flying. Tiger is our call sign if there's an instructor pilot on board. Kitty means it's a solo. So that's what our three call signs are: Furball, Tiger, and Kitty. Okay? And I think that's pretty much. Any questions about our work areas? This is where we do the majority of our training. We also have some stray cats and dogs that we do at further areas for the RPAs, because the RPAs are taken up pretty much to a private pilot's license by the time they graduate. They get 39.3 hours. They do solo cross countries. The majority of our flying is sunrise to sunset. The RPAs do night flying, but it's one night for one night about once every 6 weeks. That's all that happens there. Okay? Yes, sir. We'll start here and work that way.
Can we find unmanned aircraft in any one?
No, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We teach the RPA folks, but they are in aircraft. We have no drones. There are no unmanned, no UAS in our areas. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot to touch on that. Yes, sir.
Are these blocks of training areas the same as the Air Force blocks? Are these different?
They're further south.
We're further south. These are south of the two. If you see on the academies, the two further south blocks that they have, we are south of that. We are all these are within 30 miles of Pueblo.
How far north is Bullseye from Pueblo?
Bullseye, it takes me about 20 minutes to get there, so roughly about 40 miles. Okay. And it's right on, basically, it's due east of Schriever Air Force Station. We've got Meadow Lake up there. It's about 10 miles south of Springs East. And we do use that sunrise to sunset. It is monitored. We do have a radio operator there. It's our first responders in the event of an accident. We do have personnel on site there. Yes, sir.
Are you guys working 9,500 and below also?
No, we're 8,500 and below. And the only people that go 8,500 are the RPAs. And again, that's that's like once, 2 people a day go up there at that 8,500. All of our work areas are 8,000 and below.
Okay. So major, from what I hear both of you guys saying, if I'm 9,500 or 10,000 and above, I'm clear.
Of 98% of what we do. Of the gliders, the jump guys will be up there, but they're talking to Colorado Springs. And we have our 3 areas that I said on the backside that we're not going to use often, but they're 10.5 to 11.5. But if you're at 10.5, you're clear of probably 98% of our traffic.
Our training gliders will go up to 12.5, but they'll only be over the academy doing spin training. The only ones you have to worry about are 5 Alpha Fox, 4 Alpha Fox, 8 Alpha Fox, anything Alpha Fox, or your cross-country birds. There's only usually 1 or 2 of those going up at a time. But again, they could go in there, so.
Any other questions for me?
Hey, Pete?
Yeah.
Why don't you explain to them, because you're up there and you understand what's happening with the Army as well. Just give them kind of
I'm going to bring up the airport and show all that at once.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I want to touch on is real quick. This chart, if you happen to lose what I gave you, it's also available online on the CDOT Aeronautics publications. It's in that publication that CDOT puts out, and it's also in the AFD, the Airport Facilities Directory. It has these same work areas. Okay.
Okay, well, then yes, there are stuff. Dan also got our stuff in the CDOT, so when the new CDOT comes out, and you all get a copy, you'll have depictions of where we'll be flying. This is the depiction of where IFS is flying, where the Academy's flying. This is a bad depiction. It looked better than I had it. So, yeah, that doesn't tell you anything. But this is in what, AFD?
Yeah, AFD.
This will be in the AFD.
Special notice section.
There'll be the pictures. There'll be the pictures in the CDOT as well. So when you all get your free copies from the Colorado Department of Transportation in the next couple of months, you'll have updated pictures of where we're operating.
I just heard a question and I got to address it because you stole my thunder there. As bad as this looks, I want to tell y'all about something else that's fixing to happen, okay? Right now, the Fort Carson has, they got an air brigade that's coming in, 123 helicopters, okay? Because of that, they're running out of space to park helicopters. So they found this nice little airport that they didn't think was real busy down here called Pueblo. So they're bringing, what they're going to do, they have the school up there that teach high altitude training, which is where they take the folks up in the mountains, get them ready for what they're going to see in Afghanistan. That school is going to be transitioning for parking the aircraft. They'll be doing that down at Pueblo. That's kicking off in April. We had a meeting a week and a half ago. 18 aircraft. April 1st are going to show up. They'll be there for about 3 to 4 weeks. They're planning about 30 to 60 sorties a day, and right now it's not in stone yet. But what they're going to do is come south out of Pueblo, fly up the Arkansas River till they hit I-25, and then fly northbound along the interstate. Now the good news is they swear they won't go above 300 feet. Okay? So, that's what we're hearing right now. That's coming as well. So for those that are coming southbound, you're going to see a lot of traffic heading northbound as well. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. The question is what kind of helicopters, and my answer was yes. It's going to be a huge mix. Supposedly they're going to try and leave out the Chinooks as much as possible, but the Chinooks get the training as well. So any type of helicopters the Army's got, they will bring them in here. Yeah. And again, they said 30 to 60 sorties a day, but the majority of their flying, again, this was what they initially told us, will be at night because they want to be on the NOGs, the night vision goggles. So, but it will be a lot of traffic coming up and down that corridor going northbound. Yes, sir.
You guys at DOS are serious, right?
No, we're the DA-20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're the really hard planes to see. So, yeah, we've got 49 DA-20s down there. Yes, sir.
In addition to this hodgepodge, aren't there a bunch of 130s down there on the casual operating that you got to worry about?
They typically don't come down until DOS is shut down. They do use Pueblo periodically, but the C-130s usually wait until DOS is out of the way. Because we found that our planes and their planes don't mix very well.
But there are C-130s stationed at Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado Springs, that operate regularly, doing their low levels, doing their 4 shifts. So yes, there are C-130s around as well.
And now that I've told you about the helicopters, I also want to throw out, y'all seen the Ospreys, the rototilt? They're coming to Pueblo as well, for the same reason. Okay, so it's going to, I'm just mentioning that, just let you know it's going to start getting even more congested down here.
They gonna make it an Air Force base, Pueblo?
Can I show just the new church layout real quick so you can see that? Last thing I want to touch on, we're getting a new runway at Pueblo. The official opening date is June 26th, and that's what the backside of my handout is. It's got the depiction there, and as soon as Taylor brings that up, I'll just kind of talk real quick the way the plan to work is right now.
And Taylor asked me how long we would take. I'd say, 15, 20 minutes. I think we're going on 45, so I apologize that we're taking a little bit more time to discuss these changes.
Okay, right now, this is our current layout. This is 8 right, 26 left, 8 left, 26 right. The plan is on the night of June 25th, they're going to throw a switch, and this is what happens. This runway goes away. The short runway that's right there on the ramp goes away. It'll be X'd out. And now, here's 8 right, here's 26 left, 8 left, 26 right. This is one point of concern I want to show you. They've got the same threshold. And the plan is right now, they'll go to, what they come out. So I'll just go back to this. The plan here is this is the primary training runway. This is where the majority of the DOS traffic will work. If you're coming for a full stop for your $100 hamburger, you can expect the big runway, and then they'll taxi you down here. And that is the plan as of about 2 weeks ago.
What date?
June 26th is the official opening, and they timed that so it'll be able to make all the changes in their publications. They'll probably open prior to that, but it'll open by notice. The official opening, so everything's in all the proper publications, June 26th.
And that also changes to 8,300 feet for 1.7?
Well, that'll still be 8,300. Yeah, there's no changes to 1.7. The only thing that happens is your landing old short line now moves up here.
Yeah, how much runway is that?
It's 8308, I think. And this one here, again, the dimensions for the other two are on that sheet that I gave you. This one's just right at 5,000 feet. No instruments, but it will be lighted. And that's what's happening. Just a little bit of what's going on down at Pueblo. Okay?
Thank you. Let's take just a quick 5-minute break to reset.